Hi, everybody. This is Carol Ann McGuire from Rock Your Strengths, and I am here with Mike Shaw. We're going to talk a little bit about Peter the Activator and what Activator looks like in Mike's life and kind of his ministry. So, Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself first.
Okay, my name is Mike Shaw. I live in Plano, Texas. Been in ministry, been in church life really since about 1999. I got baptized late in life, so I won't tell you how late, but we'll just go from there. My top five, Activator is my number five. So I have Maximizer, Individualization, Arranger, Connectedness, and Activator.
Nice. I have Maximizer Envy. I do. Like, that's the one. Like, if I could put it in there, I would love to have Maximizer. But Activator. So tell us a little bit, like, so Activator is kind of a quick theme. You know,
right.
Things happen fast. What does it look like in your ministry? You know, what does it look like for you in your work and in your church?
Activator really is, it's a momentum driver. And so I think a lot of things that you see, even like the sermon that you gave, I think what you're looking at is, Peter's somebody who wasn't afraid. Mm-hmm. And so I think when you look at Activator, it's really, it's a strength that doesn't need to have everything answered ahead of time. You can wade into something kind of, yeah, this sounds good. I should do it. Let's go figure it out. And so I can think, even thinking of strengths, I read the book, Growing an Engaged Church, back in 2007 when it came out. And Activator kicked in right away. So I just said, we got to go do this. What can we do with this? So I was on the church leadership board at the time. So we all took the test. I convinced everybody to do it. Ran a couple sample groups, and we were in between pastors at the time. So we waited till 2009. And then when it happened, then we just started a group. Basically, we called it, over time, it morphed into what we ended up calling the one-to-one ministry. And it was really, how could we connect different people that were just joining?
Wow.
And make a part of the church body. So, so that's just one thing we did. And it's just basically, we just saw a need to do that. And let's go figure it out.
That's the best part about Activator. Like, let's do it and then we'll figure it out later.
Yeah. So I think you end up with more bumps in the road. So one of the things I've learned about it as far as ministry work is you have to figure out who you're going to invite in the early phases. And you also need to figure out who are the partners that you can partner with to bounce something off of. So like, I know one gal at the church is somebody who has input, learner, some of the deeper strengths. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times if I'm seeking a contrary opinion or do I have my thoughts together on this, then I think seeking out somebody like that could be helpful. Sometimes activators can jump in a little too quick. So I've learned that. So I'm thinking, okay, this sounds good. Let me talk to somebody else before I go too far. So
maybe a little deliberative in there somewhere.
Deliberative is actually 32 for me, so probably not. But
that might be a good partner.
They are very good partners. Absolutely.
How about when you look back over your life and your Christian walk, how has God really used his Activator in your life?
I would say that in 2011, I kept getting a pull that we needed to start a grief ministry at the church. Mm-hmm. And how can we help people that are dealing with the death? And I experienced the death of my 18-year-old son back in 2004. So I think part of what you want to do is say, what has happened to you and how can you use it? Mm-hmm. So I'm a firm believer that God didn't cause that, but what does he want me to do with that? And I think that one of the things I learned going through grief is you want somebody who has experienced something similar, or a lot of ways you want somebody who's experienced something exactly the same. So really there's me and another gal, I prayed about it really for quite a while to say, because I'm thinking I'm not really qualified to do this. I'm not a trained counselor. I'm not this, I'm not that. But we've been doing it twice a year since 2011, and some groups have been very small, and some have, we've intentionally kept it below 12 people, and 7 or 8 people is probably normal in that group. So, I think that would be one where I would say I was called to that because I probably would have never done that on my own.
Yeah. It's really amazing how when you look at it, for me, when I was writing this book, that God was Jesus is so perfect in each one of these 34. It was actually the easiest part of the book for me to write. I was talking to somebody yesterday about it, and he said, how hard was it to write? I was like, well, I pretty much dove into the life of Jesus 34 times and read his whole life story 34 times. And in 34 times, I came out with 34 completely different, perfect strengths.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's what's great. That's what I love about the book, is how you tie that back. So I think a lot of times we forget that. I had said earlier I have individualization. So I have a tendency to say, who am I in the story? Does this sound like something I would do, or who does this sound like? So I have a tendency to look at it that way. So that's what I love about it.
Yeah, I really did. It was just fascinating to me. In there, I kind of put like a little, like a worship playlist, like a playlist that somebody with this theme would have, maybe playing on their iPod or something. Are there any worship songs that that kind of remind you of this theme of Activator?
Well, I looked at that after I got the book in, and I kind of looked at a couple different ones, and yeah, there were a couple I just jotted down. I don't know if you've ever heard of the band New World Sun.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I wrote down the song "Working Man" because I think if you look at that, I am a working man, and it just talks about doing God's work, and I think that's what an activator does. Or another one is I wrote down David Crowder's song "We Won't Be Quiet."
Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect.
So, those are probably a couple songs I think of, because I think when you think of activator, you're not thinking of somebody that's quiet and going to lay in the bushes and be, still.
No, no way. Let's talk a little bit about Peter being an activator. What do you think about Peter as this theme?
Well, I think he's a natural. I think that he's the first one most people think of when they think activator, but I'm probably a Peter defender in the fact that I think most people, when they think of him cutting off the ear, and they think of him denying Jesus and all these other things. And I think what they forget is we also said Peter will be the cornerstone of the church.
That's right.
So I think you just like any of us, I think if you look and say, okay, what did I not like, and what happened with that? And I thought your point in your book where it talked about after Peter learned to listen to Jesus, then he didn't use his activator improperly. Yeah. And I think that's really what I think of when I think of Peter, is there's really almost two completely different stories. And we have a tendency to think of his first part and forget his second. And his second one's very, very strong. And a lot of times that's not the part they think of when they think of Peter.
Totally agree on it. Again, I was having this conversation last night with a friend of mine about Jonah and Wu, because I chose Jonah for Wu, which was a difficult choice because I was trying to find somebody for that theme, and Wu is my number 5. And so there's a lot of people in the Bible to put there, but I wanted to make sure it was like the only one. I only wanted to have one for each theme.
Right.
And I chose Jonah because although he's known as the reluctant prophet, in his speech to Nineveh in 8 words, from his time throughout all of history after, no one has ever had a revival service like that.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. And so I love to dive into these, especially that, like Peter, sometimes they're known for their impulsive nature, but that's kind of the charm of him. He's a likable guy.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's the key to the Bible is, where are we in the story, and not just the bad part. We have to, I would never do that, or yeah, we would. And so I think we got to look at the whole story. The story's not over yet.
Absolutely.
So,
is there a present day kind of Christian hero out there that you see that kind of reminds you of this, this theme a little bit?
Tell you who I thought of, and I don't know if you've ever heard of Levi Lusko. He's a pastor up in Montana. Okay, and I read his book, The Lion, where his daughter died, and he made me think of that because here's somebody who had a ministry, had a thriving church in Southern California, and felt God's call to go to Montana. And he kept saying, no, I'm a California guy. I'm not going to Montana. And ended up moving to Montana, and now he's got couple satellite campuses up there and just doing really well. So I think that when I think of activator, that's kind of what I think of. Who's going to just do something that somebody else would go, I'm not going to do that. And I think he is one off and did it. Or another one I think would
jump out of
be,
the boat.
yeah, or another one would be not in a Christian way, but could be, is John Maxwell, I know, has Activator as well. So I think if you're thinking of great leadership people,
Yeah,
you know, there's a key one for you.
that's awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking time out of your, out of your world a little bit to kind of share with us. But it's been such an awesome journey for me. I'm just really excited to share it with you and
I love it.
people. Yeah. But thank you so much for coming on and just kind of talking to me a little bit about your Activator. If anything else like you want to share a little bit about Activator?
No, I think with Activator, like I said, I think what people need to look at is, if you're looking like in ministry, I think what you have to look at is if you have ministries that are kind of dying out or fading, and you need somebody to kind of create some energy and a spark in there. Usually the activators are the ones that are going to do that. The downside to Activator, or where you want to be careful, is don't put them in something that's just kind of plugging along and slow and
good point.
They're not going to want to do that. They're going to cause you more trouble than they will do good. That's
a really good point, is that Activator needs to be moving. That they need to be in the front lines doing stuff.
One of the quotes I like about that, when you think about ministry work, is knowledge is useless unless converted to action. And that's
Activator statement.
Activator quote. So it's like, don't have me learn something if I can't do anything with it. So
right. That's awesome. I wanted to ask you one. In the book, I just put kind of like little questions for activators. Mm-hmm. Any of those questions kind of stand out with you?
Well, one of the ones where you just said, what can you do right now to activate your faith? I think activators, even though you can look at it and say impulsively, I was called, about 6 weeks ago, just to give you an idea, and asked to be if I would join back on the church's leadership team. And I was on it earlier, and a lot of people will say, no, been there, done that, right? Mm-hmm. And I didn't hesitate. So when they said to do that, we're in the middle of a pastor change, and I think that creates some, discomfort for a lot of people. So as soon as they called and asked if I do it, I said, sure, I'll do it. So I just think you got to look and say, can God use me in this case? And in that case right now, I looked and went, yeah, I think he can. So.
Would you have any advice for like somebody in your congregation that's an activator that, might be going through some stuff, or, maybe somebody that's watching this that might be having stuff going on in their lives, and how would you encourage them, as an activator?
Well, two ways. One is to find something that you could. There's a book out there called Holy Discontent, written by Bill Hybels, and really what it talks about is there something going on that is just driving you crazy? So it's easy to think of, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers or things like that, where somebody just said, I'm going to take action. And that's what Holy Discontent is all about. Is there something going on in the world that God's calling you to, that you say, I don't know that anyone can do this as good or better than me, and I feel I'm being called to this, then go do that. Because I think if you're an activator and you're not using it, what can end up happening? You can end up being the negative person in the room. And really all it is your frustration that nothing's going on. So, if you're on a committee and things aren't happening, maybe you talk to somebody else, maybe you're on the wrong committee, maybe God's calling you to something different. So I think, activators by nature, I know prayer life has been something I've had to concentrate on, and I think I'm pretty good at it now, but I don't think it comes as natural to an activator. And so I think, if you're not getting the answers you need, then in some cases, pray on your own, or if you can have a partner. My wife and I have gotten into the habit of praying in the mornings together. So I think if you can do those kinds of things and have somebody encourage you down that, then I think the answers will come to you.
I couldn't even end in a more perfect way. That was beautiful. Mike, thank you so much. I really appreciate all the time that you've spent, and I really appreciate your ministry, and I wish you many, many blessings in your church and in what you're doing there. And I just so many wonderful things I want God for your life. And thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Keep those things coming on Facebook and everything. I love watching your journey.
I sure will. Thanks, okay. Mike. Have a good night.
Right. You too.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.